Hello everybody, Keith here again. Today I want to do something quite different to my usual output. I want to take a leaf out of Roger's book and do a video that will, a series of videos, my first of a series of videos, that will help me see the development of plants that I'm intrigued by, and I hope you might be as well. There may be too many. It might end up getting a little bit unwieldy, and I might end up having to split these into more than one video in the end. But at the moment they're simply an eclectic mix of plants that I'm intrigued by and nothing more than that. There's no attempt to make them genera or classes or anything like that. They're just a collection of plants that want looking at. So where do we start? We'll start with this little Tolumnia. This, as you can probably see, is Tolumnia Foxiana, and it's absolutely tiny. I don't know how well you can see how big it is. There's my finger, just to give you an idea of scale. I got this as part of a plant swap with Zena Rapper before she moved to Italy, and it was a longer piece. I know that Tolumnia needed it to be humid. I tried initially to grow it in fresh air, which over a water retentive medium, and somebody said no, try not to do that, it'll be better on something. What I did, I cut a piece of twig out of one of the trees in our garden, and it really never did well. It put some new growths out, but they never went anywhere, and the roots never did anything. And after a long time of worrying and fretting, I actually remembered something. I think it was Roger who talked about different mounts and using different woods and things for different mounts and trying different things out. And I'm sure he said that there are some plants whose bark is toxic to stop other plants, mosses for the most part I guess, from growing on the surface. And so really it's kill or cure. This could go either way over the next year. But I found this piece of bark in a pet shop not far away, and I haven't strapped it down particularly tight. I just put some cotton around it just to try and hold it in place. And I don't know, again, I don't know how well you'll see this. This is sitting over a groove, and I spray this every day, at least once. And I look at the colour of the roots. If the roots stay green in the afternoon, I only do it the once. If the roots go pale, I'll spray it again. I use orchid mist as the fertiliser and rainwater for the majority of sprayings. And since it's gone on this, I think it's better. The new fan is standing up, the roots go green and haven't died back, and I think this cork surface is absorbing some of the water that I spray on and is giving it the humidity that it needs. Whether it's big enough to go anywhere, I genuinely don't know. Okay, the next one. Let's try zooming this out now. If you see me looking to one side, it's because I've got my iPad. I'm even using that as a remote viewfinder because I can see what I'm doing with that. This is Phalaenopsis Equestris. Got this from Burnham's. It's a miniature. It's flowering side, as you can see. That's the spike. Quite pretty little flowers. And it's grown several nice leaves. I'm quite happy with that. It's probably ready for a repot. But the thing I'm interested in really is this terminal keiki on the end of the spike. I've not seen anything like that before. But it's growing well, as this is putting out a new leaf, so is that. So it's something to see where we go with it. When will it put roots out? There's no sign of any roots as yet, but it's obviously quite happy. It's probably, as I'm going to want repotting. I've had it probably about 9-10 months, something of that order, perhaps a little bit more like 8 or 9 perhaps. And I think, looking at the bark, it's ready for a look at. But it's not going to need to go into a much bigger pot. So that's about the size of it. When I bought it, Sarah said, treat it carefully to start with. Once it's established, just treat it like any other fowl. It'll sit on a windowsill and it'll be absolutely fine. And it's doing just that. So although it's a species, it's doing absolutely fine. This is my only Masdevallia. You've seen this one recently. It's a fairly recent acquisition from Lawrence Hobbs. Really quite pleased with it. I've repotted it recently, which you can see on my channel. Seems to be doing quite well. We've got some growth that are coming on. It was dropping leaves. That was the thing that prompted me to do a repot. It had started to drop leaves. I don't know, didn't seem to be awfully happy in its pot. I gave it a haircut. Mick of Mixed Masdevallia said it looked okay how I'd done it, and although I don't know how fast new growths develop, there are some younger growths which are coming on. There's another one there, and I think that this is going to be okay. But it's the only one I've got. It's the only one I've ever kept. The cool growing plants, of course. So I've got to work out how to keep it, because when we get around to the summer, this place can hit 34 degrees. So this is going to die. If it stays in here, it's going to die instantly. So I've got to try and work out what I'm going to do with it. Whether I try putting it outside, I can find some shady spots for it. There's things I can do, but I'm going to need to think quite hard about how I'm going to look after this. And that's one of the reasons why I want this in this development program, because this is going to be a journey that we can all go along with together. I have 2 Bulbophyllums. This is another plant that I got from Zena, and this is Bulbophyllum fascinator. The other one's a hybrid, this one's a species. It's put up a couple of new growths, seems to be quite happy. The bulbs are large and plump. No sign of flowering, I think. But we have got new growth on 2 leaves, so we've got something here, and then round the back we've got something there. Now the last time this thing put a new growth out, it had me slightly fooled. It started off developing very, very close to the base of the previous pseudo bulb, and I thought, oh, you never know, this could be a spike. Although it is said, and I don't know because I haven't seen this one flower, I haven't seen the other one flower yet either, that they flower on the previous bulb. I wondered if if this was going to be something slightly different. And in fact, what it did was it started to develop, and then the rhizome developed. I mean, a lot of plants, the rhizome extends and then it pushes another growth up. This one didn't do that, went the other way around. It started the new growth, and then the rhizome pushed out and it pushed away from the parent bulb. So again, this is one that I want to look at with a bit of care, see where we're going. The second is getting a lot of mentions today. This is Dendrobium Jenkinsii, another one of the plants that she sent me. Up to then, I'd never had a mounted plant, and this is obviously a plant that should be mounted. The way it grows, you can see that's really what it wants to be. It needs to be mounted after some fashion. I haven't done that, and just as a way of trying to keep the thing alive, you probably see, you can again see this when in my channel. I 3/4 filled this pot with bark so that it drained and dried out well. Then put this moss in the top, and through the summer, and while it was growing actively, I kept this moist all the time. Now, like a lot of the Dendrobium family, this one needs a winter rest. According to some information that Mel Stephen, our East Midlands Orchid Society Dendrobium guru, gave me, some of his own studies about rainfall in the salt areas for these different species. This had a dry spell, or an almost dry spell, so what I'm doing instead of water, making sure this stays moist, I'm letting it dry completely out, and then dribbling some water over it once a week. And when it starts to do something, or the bulbs start to shrink badly, then I might start doing it more. But one of the things I said was these canes can end up looking like raisins or sultanas, quite shriveled, and it'll be absolutely fine. So that's something I need to keep tabs on. But so far so good. I think it put out certainly put 4 out, if not 5 new growths. So it's obviously not too unhappy with the way it is. But in this, next 12 months, I want to take it out of this pot, get another piece of cork, and mount it properly. Because I think then it's got the room and the chance to go somewhere. Again, it's near my big feet. Sorry for catching the tripod. A plant that's doing okay for me, but something I still want to learn more about, and if that's only kind of recording what it's doing, well, so much the better. This is Psychopsis Mariposa. This is the standard form. There is a 3-lip form, which a new YouTube channel that's worth looking at called What's Up Orchids, she's just got one of the 3-lip versions, which is quite a bit smaller than this, but it's just thrown out a flowering spike. Now mine has put out a number of new growths. We've got one here. Can we see? One just there is growing and extending quite nicely. We've had some other. One that it's growing from is a relatively new growth. I'm pretty sure you are not going to see this one, but down in there where my finger is, there's a new growth pushing out from there. It's got a very odd growth habit. It's kind of all growing in a clump of pseudobulbs and pushing roots out all over the place. But at least now I've dropped it down in the pot, it seems to be doing a little bit better. It didn't sulk the first time I repotted it and got it, but it was too wet, too long. It sulked, and this year, having done this again, put slightly less moss in it, still in this heavily ventilated pot, it's doing very well. Now, just to show one of the curiosities of a Psychopsis, the spike grows and extends and flowers and extends and so on continuously. Despite the fact that the plant's in vegetative growth, this will keep going. And I mentioned this to What's Up Orchids on one of her comments. I hope she sees this. This is how it looks. You always get, after the flower drops, it'll develop into two nubs at the tip. You can see one there with the flower on, and the second one is now extending. That is what will make the next stage of the spike, and then as that grows, the flower nub will appear, and that's a fairly regular thing. The flower lasts a couple of weeks, something of that order, and then it'll drop off, and then it'll be another, I don't know, month or so before it flowers again. But there's something really rather odd and alien and quite lovely about a Psychopsis. I'm told that not many people grow them anymore. It seems rather difficult, and because this spike keeps going and going and going, they can get very, very tall. So I can see why that might be a problem. The thing I want to try and see this year with this, the aim of the research really with this one, is to see if I can induce a spike rather than new growth. Quite happily putting new growths out, so it's turned into a really chunky plant, but I need another spike. That would be really, really nice. Right, for the next one, well, it's actually three. These are all at a similar stage of growth, and I've got the three different plants photographed. You'll see that from the bits in the video where I've added those in. What these were handed out, I don't know exactly where they came from, but at the only meeting that the Orchid Society managed to arrange this year, they were giving away Cymbidium plants, and these are a name variety. These are Mavenin Jester. They were all exactly the same stage. They've got one nice little pseudo bulb and a new growth. Because I got three, and they were free, so why not? I gave myself the chance to experiment. This particular one is in the bark and ceramics mix, which for most plants I'm going off. Unless they are very heavy drinkers, this does tend to stay wet too long, and I've had problems with this with some of my plants before. It doesn't seem to stay very good very long, but nevertheless, that's all three at the moment seem to be doing okay. They're all growing. We've got leaves coming, so I want to see how these go. But basically what you've got is this in this particular bark ceramic mix. The other two are all in plain bark, which is how I grow all my other cymbidiums, and with these they're in different size pots. But as they all came in a big moss plug, we'll just see whether you can have too big a pot. What I found with some of my cymbidiums is even if they don't do a lot on the top, they can put a lot of root out. So all we can do is wait and see what happens with those three. again, I don't know how, whether this is going to come to as too long in the end, but these are my 3 Restrepias to have a look at. They've all now flowered at least once. Some have put new growths up. I'm not sure whether this one has or not. This one is Restrepia cuprea, but they're doing okay. I'm really surprised and very, very pleased with how well these are doing. But as I said with the Masdevallia, these are cool growing. If I leave them in here, in the conservatory, that'll lose the lot. So I've got to try and work out what I'm going to do with these once the weather warms up, and that's going to take some looking at, very careful looking at. This one is brachypus. It seems to want to push out cakeys rather than grow from the base of the plant. This was a cakey that it pushed out. Since I've had it, it is just, it's up by my fingernail, just putting roots out. So I'm going to keep a careful tab on that, and when the roots are long enough, I'll take it out and pot it separately and see if I can make another plant. But that's all part of the journey. But at the moment, they're all performing. Brachypus was the one I was most worried about. I've said before, it didn't flower fully. It tried to bloom 2 or 3 times before it finally managed it, and I began to wonder if I got a duff plant, but in the end it did everything. Now this one is sanguinea, which is really lovely. It's very dark magenta colour. This one has flowered a few times. It hasn't put any new growths up yet, so I'm just waiting to see what this one does. But hopefully we're all right. Whether I ought to be fishing them out of the pots, I'm not sure yet. I need to seek some advice, but they are in moss, so it doesn't smell bad so far, but we all know how moss can be funny. So anyway, that concludes all the plants I want to look at over the next 12 months. Like Roger, I'm going to do these every 3 months, so there'll be another 3 videos up to this time next year. So the next one will be about mid-April, and then mid-August, mid-November probably, and then mid-January. No, it can't be quite right, but you know what I mean. So we've got another 3 or 4 videos to come to look at the way these things develop in the next year. So we'll see where we go with this. Thank you for watching, and I hope that this series will end up being of interest to some of you. Thanks a lot. Bye.